Hey everyone! Today we're going to dive into something called systems thinking. And honestly, it's more than just a concept, it's a totally different lens for looking at the world. It helps make sense of the complex, interconnected reality we're all a part of, from our jobs all the way to our daily lives.
But first, let's kick things off with a question that I'm pretty sure has driven all of us crazy at some point. Why is it that you come up with a solution, you put a fix in place, and then the problem comes right back? Sometimes it's even worse than before. It feels like you're constantly fighting fires, but you never actually put them out for good.
Well, a lot of the time, the answer is in how we're taught to think. We're all masters of linear thinking. You see a problem, you apply a fix. It's simple, it's direct, and it's often completely wrong. Because here's the thing, reality isn't a straight line. It's this messy, beautiful web of interconnected loops. And that's exactly what systems thinking is all about. It helps us see the circles, not just the arrows.
So how do we actually start to see the world this way? Well, the very first step is learning to look below the surface, to see past the obvious things we react to every single day.
Okay, so what is it, really? At its heart, systems thinking means looking at the whole picture. Instead of breaking everything down into the tiniest possible pieces, which is a method called reductionism, it asks us to focus on the relationships, the connections, and the patterns that show up when all those pieces start interacting with each other. And you know what? There's a brilliant metaphor that makes this so much easier to grasp, the iceberg model. It's a simple yet incredibly powerful way to visualize these hidden layers of reality.
Right at the very top, the tip of the iceberg that's poking out of the water, we have events. This is what we see and react to every day. A project missed its deadline, the quarterly budget was overrun, a new product launched successfully. This is where we spend like 99% of our time. But just below the surface, you start to see patterns. Is this the fifth time we've missed a deadline this quarter? Do budget overruns seem to happen in the same department over and over? Go deeper still and you find the systemic structures. These are the rules of the game, the workflows, the official and unofficial policies that cause those patterns to happen. And way down at the very base of it all, that's where we find the mental models, the deep-seated beliefs and assumptions that created the whole structure in the first place.
So what really makes something a system versus just a pile of stuff? Let's break it down. Think about your kitchen. It's a collection of things, a fridge, a stove, a microwave. If you take out the toaster, you still have a kitchen, right? It's just a kitchen without a toaster. But now think about a football team. Is that just a collection of players? No way. That's a system. If you remove the quarterback, the entire way the team functions fundamentally changes. The key difference is that a system has a purpose, and all its parts are so interconnected that changing one part changes the whole thing. And you know, this way of thinking isn't some new fad. In fact, it actually came about as a direct challenge to the way science had been doing things for centuries. Back in the middle of the 20th century, a biologist named Ludwig von Bertalanffy noticed a big problem. Science was obsessed with breaking things down, studying a cell to understand an organ, studying a molecule to understand a cell. He argued that for complex, living things, like an ecosystem, or a society, or even a company, that approach just misses the magic. You lose the bigger picture. So his big idea was a general systems theory, which was all about finding the universal rules and principles that apply to any system, no matter if it was biological or social. He wanted to break down the walls between different fields of science.
And all of his work really boils down to this one famous idea. In any real system, brand new properties emerge from the interactions between the parts. You can study every single football player in isolation, measure their speed, their strength, everything. But you will never ever predict the magic that happens when they play together as a team. That magic is in the interaction.
Okay, enough theory. Let's bring this down to earth and see how these ideas play out in a place we all know pretty well, the workplace.
Think about something like a company's culture, or even its overall performance. Those things aren't created by a single person or a single department. They are what we call emergent properties. They just arise, almost spontaneously, from the thousands of daily interactions, decisions, and feedback loops happening all across the company. You can't just send out a memo that says, "We now have a great culture." You have to design a system where a great culture can emerge on its own.
Now, to understand these interactions, we use two really basic building blocks. The first one is called the reinforcing loop. Just think of a snowball rolling downhill. It's an engine of acceleration. It can create amazing, virtuous cycles of success, or it can create terrible, vicious cycles of decline.
A classic example is a sales cycle.
You make some successful sales, which leads to happy customers. Those happy customers give you great word-of-mouth referrals. And of course, those referrals lead to even more successful sales. The loop just keeps reinforcing itself, and you get this awesome exponential growth.
But of course, nothing grows forever, right? Something has to push back. And that brings us to the second building block, the balancing loop. These are the great stabilizers of the world. They are goal-seeking, they resist change, and they're always trying to pull a system back to some desired state. The absolute perfect analogy is a thermostat in your house, just trying to keep the room at the right temperature.
In any organization, a budget is a perfect example of a balancing loop. As spending goes up and up, eventually it hits the budget constraints. Whoops. That triggers a reaction. You've got to reduce spending. And that pulls the system back into a stable state around its financial goal. These two loops, one that pushes for more and one that pulls for stability, they are the invisible forces driving the behavior of almost every system around us.
So, we know about these loops. How do we actually use this knowledge? This is where we go from just being analysts to becoming architects of better outcomes.
So let's look at a classic systems trap. It's one of several common patterns that systems thinkers call archetypes. And I would bet that almost everyone listening has experienced this one personally. It's called the fix that fails.
Here's how the story goes. You've got a problem. Parts from a supplier are consistently late. So the quick, linear fix? Let's hold more review meetings to track their progress. Makes sense, right? But what actually happens? Well, all those meetings pull engineers and managers away from their real work. This causes even more delays in the project, which, you guessed it, triggers the need for even more meetings. The fix has accidentally created a reinforcing loop that is making the original problem worse.
And this brings us to what is maybe the most important mindset shift in all of systems thinking. The real power, the point of highest leverage for making a change, is not in frantically working in the system, reacting to late parts and scheduling more meetings. The real leverage comes from stepping back and working on the system, redesigning the workflow or the communication structure or whatever is causing the delays in the first place. This gives us a kind of ladder of action. Down at the bottom rung, we're just reactive. We're responding to events as they happen, fighting fires. As we climb up, we become adaptive, where we start to see patterns and anticipate them. But the real goal is to get to the top rungs, to become creative, where we're actually designing new systems, and ultimately generative, where we're not just solving problems, but we're creating a new future.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In your own work, in your own life, when you run into a problem, are you just grabbing the fire extinguisher and reacting to the immediate flames? Or are you stepping back, seeing the whole system, and finding that one small change that can reshape the entire future?